Going to the grand stage, Choisir began brilliantly, straight to the lead. Planchet fast away. Tycoon Ruler is just behind them on the rails, followed by Choisir. Going up on the outside is El Capitan. Titanic Jack is about 5 deep as they come down past the 850-metre point. Choisir is the leader. Choisir is a length in front. Planchet running second. Tycoon Ruler is third, followed by Blur and Choisir. Titanic Jack is next. A length further back to Cool, Trent and El Capitan. They're tightly packed. 600 metres to go. Choisir doing it pretty easily at the moment, joined by Planchet. Into third place is Blur, followed by Tycoon Ruler just behind them. Blur is in that bunch, followed by Choisir. Titanic Jack given a smack with a whip to get his mind on the job. They've got 400 metres left to go. Choisir's just in front. He wants to get away from the rail. Planchet and Blur having a crack at him. Blur might have his nose in front of Choisir. Choisir's kicking again. He's running about badly. Oh, he went right out and went under the neck of Blur. Choisir is in front as they draw to the line. He's going to win the money, but we'll hear more about that one. Choisir first. Planchet out wide might get second. Blur will be third. No luck at all. Then Cool, Trent and Choisir, followed in by El Capitan, Titanic Jack and Tycoon Ruler, one of the last over the line.
What a start to the day. $100 pot wins the first. Horse goes to the barrier. Late scratching here, and Choisir all over the boat in the last 200 metres. Interfering with Blur. Blur's been relegated to third, which is significant because Planchet's moved up to second. And that means if there's a protest and it happened to be upheld, I know I'm a long way away at the moment, Planchet would go up to first. But the two horses in question, that one, Choisir, and that one, Blur. And Choisir, he was drawing away at the moment. He looked to have about a half-length advantage, but he's just taken Blur's running completely. And Planchet's been able to get up into third placing, and second placing, I should say. Here's the head-on.
This horse is shying away from the crowd there, and he has completely knocked over Blur. Blur's had his entire race finished then. I think Planchet was probably going to nail Blur anyway for second place, but Choisir there, he's very unpredictable. That's why he wears those pacifiers, because he is an unpredictable horse, and he has really created some havoc. I don't think there's enough here for a protest to be upheld. That's just my feeling.
So here's the from the helicopter. Choisir on the right of screen. Blur with the gold and black and the red cap is 4 in now. Choisir, Planchet's inside of him in the cerise. Choisir now, Boss really goes for him. He gets about a long neck, half length in front. This is where he starts to run in under pressure. You can see Glenn Boss, he's trying everything he can to keep him on a straight line. He's not able to do it.
Well, Glenn Boss is a right-handed whip rider. I bet he wished he was a left-handed whip rider at that stage. He couldn't stop riding the horse. He thought he was going to win. So he just took the punt on it and said, well, I'm going to take this horse out, but maybe I'll win by far enough to hold the race, and I think he will.
It was a massive margin at the end. Of course, Blur having his race sport for him, whether or not Planchet would have got second. But Peter Donegan spoke to Paul Berry before the race, and it was a good form guide.
Paulie was nice and relaxed in the yard before the race. He wasn't too relaxed in the last 200 metres.
No, Peter, no, he seemed, I don't know, they didn't give him a couple of hits. He shifted in a bit, but he seemed to win quite convincingly all the same. I
had the feeling that he had Blur's measure when he came past us here in the mounting yard and you in the trainer's stand.
Yeah, I thought that too. I thought he was working away, so yeah, it was a nice one at the end anyway.
Might be a few anxious moments, you never know, but I think you'd be reasonably confident of hanging on to it.
Seemed to win quite clearly, Peter, to me.
All right, Paul, good luck.
Thanks very much, Tar.
Yeah. Moves and Fred Astaire, this horse. I tell you, he's just but he just showed his class today. He was way too good.
He's a classy horse, isn't he? But gee, he's erratic when he learns to put it all together, Glenn.
Mate, he makes me look like a fool every time I ride him, you know. I mean, I can't tell you how hard he is to ride this horse. You just don't know what mood he's going to be in on each individual race day, so you just take him as he comes. Stacks with ability, though.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Another group win for you. Congratulations.
Thanks, Letty.
It's won over $1 million now, Choisir. A lot of it in placings. He won the Inglis Classic in January, but he's up to $1.1 million after that win.
I've always said he's a horse with an enormous amount of ability. He's just got an enormous number of problems to go with it. If he can get his head right, this horse is a Group 1 class horse. There's no doubt about that. But it's all in his head.
He was favoured for the Golden Slipper at one stage last year, and he started long odds on one day in one of the preludes and was beaten that day, and then was placed in the Slipper, placed in the Sires, placed in the Champagne, which is the Triple Crown for 2-year-olds in Sydney in autumn. And, well, he's bounced back. His run in the Guineas was outstanding.
It was. He had no hope the way he went in the Guineas. He went out and made all, had a big lead, but they cut him down. Look, apparently around the stable, he's the most kind and placid animal you'll ever find. It's just when he gets out in the track, off goes a head and on goes a melon.
1 1/4 by a half length of the margin, so they're significant. 1 1/4 by half, so he's beaten Blur by 1 3/4. The time was fast. It was 1:08.7.
I think when he knocked Blur over, the race was already won. And I don't think the stewards will take that one off him in the stewards' room. So anyone who's back Planchet, anyone who's back Choisir, I should say, I'd be very confident.
So I guess the key here is, does Stephen King protest on Blur?
I think he probably will. I mean, there's decent money at stake here, and he will have a protest there. And Glenn Boss could have a bit of trouble with the stewards later. Stewards do not like riders who do not attempt to straighten their mount, and Glenn Boss just kept riding that horse, so he may end up with a little holiday, but I just think the race was won. I think Blur was a beaten horse when Choisir went past him.
He looked to have his measure, didn't he? He'd drawn clear by about a half a length to 3/4 of a length. And back he comes. He really is a noble steed. There's no question about that. Paul Perry has such a run here. This is his only runner for the day. Doesn't he strike it rich when he comes to Melbourne?
Always brings one horse down here, Paul Perry, and the horse always wins the race and he always goes home with money. I mean, he's brought down his most difficult customer here, but as you saw him coming back to scale, Choisir, he's just a docile old lamb, except when the race is on.
Titanic Jack, the disappointment. He was crabbing it most of the way up the straight. Planchet's run up to his best form, probably, and Blur was a good, solid run as well. Not a lot to be said for the others. Cool Trent was 4th and Cousy 5th. So we'll wait here for correct weight or otherwise, but as it stands, it's Choisir the winner of the L'Oreal Paris Plate.
Interference has caused the result of the race to be changed. It's not a matter of just whether there was interference or not. It has to affect the result.
Camera 2.
Glenn Boss, first past the post. Darren Gauci 2nd. Stephen King 3rd. Plenty of experience. There's the chief stipendiary steward, chairman of the stewards, Des Gleeson, as they take another look. Remember last week the protest dismissed in the Grosby Gold Cup. Protest upheld in the Toorak Handicap, that minor one with Pernod going up from 4th into the placings. Umram going up to 2nd on that day.
I'll tell you something, Bruce, this protest won't be upheld in my opinion. That horse has won too convincingly. There was interference. The other horses have had their runs affected, but not enough to affect that result, in my opinion.
So jockeys and trainers look on as they prepare a statement to make and try and be as persuasive as they possibly can.
Yeah, there are some trainers who are like Philadelphia lawyers. They can get in there and talk the stewards into things. Some jockeys are like that too. And some jockeys are not really comfortable.
Firstly, Darren Gauci, will you make a submission in respect of your objection?
Approaching kind of metre mark off between Choisir and Blur on my inside. When they sprinted, my horse didn't ping quite as quick, but I was still there and I was holding my position. And at that time in the race, I felt my horse was starting to pick up. As you see, Choisir has come in and taken my running. I was denied a fair and straight run to the winning post. By having to grab my horse, I've lost a length in that, and also having to come out around him again, I've lost another half, 3/4 of a length easily. And I felt with a straight run, I was denied a straight run to the winning post, which I'm entitled to. And I felt that my horse still made, which it shows on the film, he still made a length over the concluding stages. The other horse is running a fair way, I realise that, a long way. But it did stop my horse's momentum. I believe it definitely cost me the race. Like I said, I was denied a straight run to the line from where I was. My horse went straight.
Any further submission?
No, sir.
No. Glenn Boss, do you wish to question Darren Gauci on his submission?
Well, I just want to know when he's going to go for the Academy Award. That was a pretty good performance, but I don't think my interference to Darren, I think it was quite minimal. And to say that he would have beaten me, I think the interference that when I come across Darren was well and truly inside the 200 metre mark. And I think I beat him
a length 3/4 with it to him.
A length and a half?
Length and a half.
By half a length.
I just doubt whether Darren would have made any significant improvements from where he was from that point.
All right, Stephen King, will you make a submission and a half in respect of your objection?
Yes, sir. Well, after his last win at Caulfield, Colin and myself spoke about how we're going to ride this horse today, being at Flemington, and the possibility of the horses coming out wide, which they did. We came to the conclusion that we'd give the horse every possible chance early in the race, and the last 200 would make the best of his last 200. With this weight, we're always concerned that he wouldn't sprint, but he would grind away at him. At that stage, when I went up to Glen Boss was about 4 off me, out wide. I was about 4 horses inside Glen Boss. I'd only had the opportunity to give my horse 2 forehands, and I was just about to wind him up the last 200 when Glen Boss's horses started to roll in. At that stage, Glen Boss didn't stop riding. He's crossed my line completely. I've had to grab hold of my horse, severely checking. And as far as the winning margin is concerned, I don't think it would have been that great if I hadn't had to check. So I just felt that Glen Boss certainly cost me a winning opportunity when he's crossed my line.
Glen Boss, do you wish to question Stephen King?
Just when you say that I don't cost you the winning margin, what do you mean by that? Like you wouldn't have beat me home when you say that?
What I mean is I don't think when you look at the winning margin, the length and a half, I certainly don't think that would have been the margin.
So well, the margin between your mount and Glen Boss's was 2 lengths.
As I said, I mean, I don't think there would have been that margin if the check hadn't occurred. Now, depends on who wins. It's hard to say, but my horse was starting to wind up, as I said, and with that heavy weight, we always decided that we'd make the last 200 his best 200. And as I said, Glen Boss hadn't stopped riding, he's crossed my line, I've had to severely check and then get back into it, which you can't account on for that, because with that weight, he can't pick himself back up again.
Well, do you believe the interference cost you the race?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Glen Boss, any further questions of Stephen King?
No questions.
No? Mr. Hawkes, any questions of any of the riders or any submissions?
Do I comment on what he said?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah,
make a submission, sorry. In respect of Stephen King,
yeah.
do you make a submission?
Yes. I believe Stephen King's interference. There's no doubt I've come out and balked Stephen King. The mistake I probably made, I stopped as I just got to him and virtually straightened up right in front of him. I believe that interference probably happened anywhere from the 70 to the 60 metre mark. I doubt whether even though he said his horse got big weight, I've got more weight, then I'd stop my horse just as well and get going. But I don't believe within 50 metres he would have picked up and beat me. Made up a 2-length deficit within that short space of time. So I believe that there's no doubt I've caused some inconvenience to Stephen King's mount, but I don't believe it cost him the race.
Stephen King, do you wish to question Glen Boss on his submission?
As far as Glen's saying about correcting his mount, I think he'd already crossed me by the time he corrected it.
All right, well, is that a question or a statement?
Well, Glen said he didn't, but I just...
No, I told you I did correct you in front of you.
Darren Goucher, I didn't give you the opportunity of asking Glen Boss a question on his submission in respect of your objection. Do you wish to question him?
No, sir.
No. Mr. Hawkes, any questions or submissions?
Just like to make a couple of points. I mean, if you watch the video, Choisir was a half, maybe 3-passing horse off the outside fence all the way. Even before the interference, the horse was continually drifting in. He'd already pushed our horse, made him sort of go in at least another horse and a half more than he should have, even before the original interference came along. We were a half a length behind him. By the time he'd crossed us, we've had to check, come around. In my opinion, it's definitely cost us the race, but the crucial boss has never stopped riding from the time, even before the interference started, when the horse started drifting to correct his mount, and for all the way to the post, never really stopped riding his horse at all. As soon as you've seen our horse finished our race off extremely well. When the interference happened with 59, it's a bit hard to go from going to the line, stop dead, come to the outside, and still hit the line 100 when you've already copped that interference. So I got no doubt if we hadn't have had the interference, and see our horse has still hit the line dead straight. If he had even corrected his mount earlier, it would have been benefit to us, but he didn't stop riding at all. I think that's the crucial point. We're entitled to a straight free run down the straight, and he never gave that us to at all.
Mr. Little, any questions of any of the riders or submissions?
Just a submission, sir.
Yes.
this horse in his previous start just got to the line and won the race in the last 2 bounds, and Stephen and I had a plan that with a fair bit of weight that we would ride in the same way, save his run to the last possible moment. And I believe that Stephen never had the opportunity to fully test the horse, and I think all videos point to the fact that he was always travelling better than PLANCHET. At every stage of the race he had that horse beat. The margin is great, but it's my opinion that he should have easily beaten PLANCHET. I think that's quite obvious in all videos. So he cost us quite a bit of ground. Arguable how much, but I believe he was easily going to beat PLANCHET by at least a length and a half.
Well, under our rules, to be successful in the protest, the stewards will have to be satisfied that your horse beat the winner, the horse that he's protesting against.
But I mean, we're talking about where the horse should have finished if he wasn't interfered with.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't protested against the second horse, but I'm using it as a benchmark.
Yeah, I understand.
And I'm saying it should have beaten the second horse by, in my opinion, a length and a half. Because all videos point to the fact that he was always travelling better and he was always going to beat that horse home.
Understand that. Mr. Perry, any questions or submissions?
So, sir, I'd just like to say that I thought coming up to Choisir shifting that Darren Gouchie's horse was ridden along and wound up. I thought when the shift come that he might have, for 1, maybe 2 strides, had to come across his hurdles, and then was very quickly to get back into his whip action, and I don't think it's sort of impeding that much at all. And I thought Glenn, all the way to the line, was trying to straighten our horse, and our horse wasn't fully tested out to get to the line, and I thought the third horse was well beaten.
Mr. Wallace, any questions or submissions?
No, I've got nothing further.
Any questions from the stewards? No, if you're all wait outside, we'll give consideration for the objections. Thank you.
Notice Max Presnell there behind Paul Perry. So you've heard the submissions from the riders and also the trainers. Now it's up to the stewards to deliberate. 15 of the entries in. So that protest still on as we go back to the protest room now. Now, I think the result may have been given, and so we'll find out in just a moment. You can see John Hawkes leaving the stewards' room. So let's go down to Peter Donegan.
The result hasn't been given as yet, Bruce. What happened was that the chairman of stewards, Des Gleeson, has just called the connections back in. All the way through the hearing, as you heard, they were referring to the margins being a length and a half by a half length. Now, Des, to be absolutely correct with everything, called the connections back in and told them that the margins were a length and a quarter by a half length. So at this stage, the protest is still on and we're still waiting to hear. But it's no holds barred in there. As you can see, there's big money up for grabs.
It's interesting, Pete, because we did give a length and a quarter by a half, and we were wondering how it got out to a length and a half at that stage.
Is greater than the margin between the horses on both occasions, and both protests are therefore upheld. The amended placings being PLANCHET first, Blur second, and Choisir third. And we'll see all your riders before you leave. Darren Gouch, I said in the view of the stewards, the interference caused by Choisir getting in is greater than the margin between the horses on both occasions, and both protests are therefore upheld. And we'll see your riders before you leave. PLANCHET first, Blur second, and Choisir third. Thank you.
Sensation here, there's no doubt about that. Richard's nearly fallen off his stall alongside of me. Both protests have been upheld. PLANCHET, Blur and Choisir is the way they have now finished. So PLANCHET, Darren Gouchie has beaten Blur, Stephen King, and Choisir, Glenn Boss.
I can't believe that, Bruce. That is an absolute sensation. I think the stewards have got it wrong. I don't think there was any way that Choisir could have lost that race, but the stewards have decided that the interference was good enough. But boy, that will go down as one of the most contentious protests in recent racing history.
Number 2, PLANCHET, 6.30 and 2.10. 4, Blur, 1.90. 1, Choisir, 1.60. Quinella, $17. Trifecta, 112 even. And the exacta, 32.30.
There's a buzz around Flemington at the moment after that protest result. An absolute buzz here, and I think people are still scratching their heads.
They're all going back to 1987 when Our Poetic Prince was lost the race to Marwong in a Caulfield Guineas, and that was the most controversial, and I can't think of one that has been more controversial since.